and welcome to today's math video. In today's video, our goal is I can find a whole given a part and a percent. Evidence-wise, we're going to set up an equation, and then we're going to use what we know about equations to solve for an unknown. You're going to think back to topic 4 when we were solving for a variable. We're going to kind of set this up the same way. It's not the only way to do it, but that's what we're going to do today. Then we're going to, of course, calculate a whole given a part and a percent. Learning experience is there. You'll notice we're only doing one example and one you do for a change, so it'll be hopefully a little bit of a shorter video. So our example problem for today. On a recent quiz, 75% of students earned at least a B. If 16 students earned a B, how many students are in the class? So right off the bat, we know a couple of important things. We know that 75% of students earned a B. And we know that there are 16 students who earned a B. So we know that 75 and 16 are the same thing in this case. We don't know, however, how many students are in the entire class. So since we're going to be setting up an equation to help us solve for the unknown, we can use a variable like x to represent how many students are in the class total. To help us try to figure out what it is that we need to do, we can use this circle over here. So copy this into your spiral, and on the top, we are going to put a part. In here, we're going to put a percent sign, and in the last fourth, we're going to just write the word whole. And what this is going to do is it's going to help us figure out what operation we need to use. Whichever thing you want to find, you're going to cover that up with your hand. So for example, if we were thinking back to some of our old videos, if we wanted to find the part, we'd cover that up and we'd see that we have percent and whole next to each other. That means we would multiply them. On the other hand, in this case, we want to find the whole. So we're going to use our hand to cover up the whole, and we'll have part above the percent. What that means is that we are going to divide. So in this case, we're going to take the part, we're going to divide it by the percentage to get the whole. So we can start writing this out. 16 divided by 75% is equal to x. That's a good start. That can be step 1. Step 1 is write an equation. I would suggest writing an equation for this just to make sure that you know which operation you're doing. Step 2 is a familiar one. It's turn your percent into, that totally says into, a decimal. When it comes to working with percents, most of the time you're actually going to turn them into a decimal. So this is now going to become 16 divided by 0.75 is equal to x. Step 3 is do the math. These steps work for any of these, by the way. It's not necessarily specifically to the kinds of problems we're working on today. It can work on quite literally anything. Here you'd have to technically do some long division, but just to save some time, we're just going to say that 16 divided by 0.75 is 21.3, repeating. You can't have a third of a student, though, so we're going to say we have about 21 students in this class. And that's it. That's all we gotta do. Pause the video. Make sure that you've copied down this example as well as the steps and the circle. I think those are really, really going to help you when you look at the you do. Pause the video again now. Our you do for today, you and your friends split the check for a meal. You each decide that you're going to pay 20% of the total cost. If you paid the $13, how much did the meal cost? Again, you can use the steps that we looked at in the example. You can use the little circle thing, the circle tool, whatever you need to do in order to find this. Ready, go. So things to remember from this video. First off, this circle organizer tool is really helpful. It can help you know which operation to use. Again, if you, and I'll write this on here, if you have a percent and a whole, you're going to do some multiplication. If you have a part and a percent, you're going to do some division. And if you have a part and a whole, which we didn't talk about, you'd still do division. So a little bit of a useful thing that you can do there to help you out. It can even tell you what the dividend and the divisor is, because whatever's on top is going to be the dividend, and whatever's on the bottom, either the percent or the whole, is always going to be the divisor. Write an equation if you need to. Write your percent as a decimal. That's an important step to do, otherwise you're going to get a really big number that doesn't actually make any sense. And then you're going to divide the part that you know by that decimal. Again, it's exactly what the circle tool helps us see. Nothing too bad. So, some suggested practice problems for today. Find the whole given the part. There's 3 of them, just very basic ones, no word problems or anything. 10 is 40% of what number? 24 is 35% of what number? And 34 is 76% of what number? It's the same thing for each of them. You just have to practice, get the pattern down, get the idea down. Then there's a word problem. This one's a little bit more challenging because your percent isn't a whole number. It's going to work the same way, though. In World of Tanks, Mr. H wins about 53.8% of his matches one day. If he won 7 of his matches, how many games did he play total? Give those a think, pause the video, and of course, good luck.